Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soul Seekers podcast, where we believe that hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure as we share our mission of mentorship is conservation. To learn more about everything we do, check out our show on Carbon TV or go to soulseekersnation.com. Freedom on, everybody, and stay soulful. This podcast is also proudly brought to you by Onyx Hunt. When I first got into hunting, I kept hearing all about public land and different access and how to find different locations to hunt. I was like, well, how are people even identifying all this stuff? Well, sure enough, I came across the number one hunting GPS app, and that is Onyx Hunt. If you guys want to get better at hunting and go deeper into your scouting, Onyx Hunt is the number one GPS app for that. Join the millions of hunters who trust Onyx Hunt to find more game, discover new access, and hunt smarter. It was a game changer for me, and I know it's going to be a game changer for you if you've never used it. If you have used it, you know the power that it holds. Guys, I really hope you enjoy this episode. If you want to know more about Onyx, go to onyxmaps.com/hunt and check out their app. Be blessed, freedom on, and stay soulful. All right, guys, if you're in the market for a new hunting rifle this coming year, look no further than a Kelbley's rifle. I've been rocking their Coda rifle for the last couple seasons, and I've had great success with it. It's an amazing shooter, and every time I put one of their rifles in somebody's hands, they're like, oh, I got to get one of these. Kelbley's holds over 92 world and national records that are either broken or set on one of their actions or rifles. So they really set a higher level of accuracy. If you want to know more about Kelbley's rifles, go to kelbley.com. That's KELBLY.com. Tell them Johnny Mack sent you with Soul Seekers, and go enjoy shooting that much more in this coming hunting season. Be blessed, everybody. Go check out Kelbley Rifles. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Soul Seekers podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack, and today's episode is one that's near and dear to my heart as I am connecting and recording with somebody who I reached out, oh man, it must have been like 6 years ago, to be a mentor to one of the people that wanted to get connected. And, you know, you connect with people in this world. Maybe it's happenstance. I don't believe in coincidences, but I do believe that everything happens with purpose. And this story is me getting to hear our guest, Trevor, on the Hunt Backcountry podcast, telling about his journey of being an adult onset hunter and also mentoring people. And I was like, this sounds like a wonderful human being. I listened to his story, really liked it, reached out to him. And ever since we've been connected, we don't talk as much as I'd like, or I'm sure as he would like. However, life has brought us back together. And since our departing conversation, probably in 2020 or 2021, he's had a lot of life and a lot of hunting stories and experiences lived. And so without further ado, my guest, Trevor White, an awesome human being and somebody who hunting has truly transformed their lives. So, brother, it's good to have you on. Thanks for being a guest today.
What a great intro, man. That's kind of cool. Very personalized. I appreciate it. Thanks, Johnny.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Well, the reason why I podcast is for relationships. It's just another way for me to connect with people on a personal level. Because at the end of the day, how often do you get to just carve out an hour or 2 hours or whatever with
Yeah.
somebody and just have a one-on-one conversation?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
This is great.
very rare nowadays. So this is awesome. I truly appreciate you hopping on short notice, and I can't wait to hear about all your wild adventures and all that. But real quick, give the listeners a little background on how and why you got into hunting and the story that connected you and I.
Oh, well, so in 2012, I went to a training. I'm a retired police officer, and I did police work for 28 years and retired in January of 23. And I went to a training in Quantico, Virginia for 3 months, and my roommate was a great dude, and we really connected and hit it off as friends. Fortunately, because some of the people that we were there with didn't like their roommates that well, so we got lucky, and we figured out a way to stay connected afterwards. And my buddy was his name's Chad, and he's from Texas. And he said, "Hey, I'm an archery hunter. You should do it too." I grew up duck hunting. I got my hunter safety program. I think I did it when I was 12. And I used to go duck hunting, as a youngster. My parents would drop me off somewhere, but I didn't really have any mentor or anybody that was hunting in my life. So it was all everything I did on my own, or just sought out. And then I had a dog that I trained for bird hunting and mostly duck hunting, but he preferred to use his nose more than anything. So he would always find the ducks that were maimed from the day before. So I'd fill half my limit on the way to the blind, but before it even had first light, because he's finding all the ducks that are rummaging around near us. But um, so that was 2012, and we hunted for the first time together in 2013. We did a kind of a leased we leased land in Missouri, and I had a blast. I had an absolute. I bought a bow. I got all serious about shooting it, and I didn't have. And it was really cold. We were there during the rut, and first or second week in November, and it was really cold, and I was wearing my duck hunting jacket because I just didn't have the appropriate stuff to be warm there. Um, I think I had some Walmart gear on underneath that, maybe Walmart, Realtree or something. Anyway, so then that basically started a yearly or multi time a year, bi-yearly, tri-yearly adventure where we get together now every year. Um, we also connected with my high school best friend Chris, and the three of us usually go to Texas and hunt at least once a year hogs and coyotes and stuff down there. Chad will come up to Idaho and hunt elk. This is the first year. We had just had the tag draw stuff yesterday, and or the 10th. Yeah, yesterday. And those guys, neither one of them got tags. So that was kind of rough. That's
I,
the first time that we've had to deal with that.
I logged in and I was number 18,000 something. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so then we also still go to Missouri. We haven't done it in a couple of years, probably mostly because of my daughter's volleyball, college volleyball stuff. It kind of keeps me from traveling as much as we used to when the kids were younger. Um, yeah, so I mean, really, my adventure starts there. Whitetail hunting is kind of how I cut my archery teeth. Um, and then in 2014 was the first year I believe I ever archery hunted elk, and that was in the northern Idaho Cabinet Mountains, which are super steep, deep, and really challenging. I didn't know what I was doing. That was one of the things I reached out to you a while ago was, because the elk that we hunt now, I'm hunting in still in the Panhandle, but lower Panhandle, and the elk in our area that we hunt don't act like what you see on TV. They don't have herd bulls that are fighting off satellites. It almost seems like every bull has his own little harem between 2 or 3 to 5 or 6
Yep.
cows. And if you try and get aggressive, even if you do the elk 101 stuff where you try and get in close and get in their kitchen and scream at them, they still take their cows and leave. They
Mm,
just don't want to fight and lose them. I think it's because the groups are probably so spread out, but it's challenging, man. When you're trying to learn as an adult onset hunter, trying to learn how to elk hunt, and the information is great, but it's about hunting north facing slopes. Well, none of our north facing slopes are that big, so a lot of times the cow or the elk can be found in wherever it's coolest,
right.
not necessarily north facing. So the dynamics, it's interesting in the environment we're in. Not a lot of those the nuggets that come from Corey Jacobson and the Dirks and you and people that we have giving us this information. It doesn't necessarily translate to all areas. And so
Right.
um, anyway,
No, I've learned that as well. It's um, and you got to take it for a grain of salt. That's one thing I've learned on my journey. So this year is 10 years since taking my hunter safety course. I'm a decade in, and I look back on this journey and it's so funny. It makes me actually want to chuckle because when you just first start out hunting, everything is so difficult. Like, and you find yourself second guessing yourself all the time. Am I
yeah,
doing it right? What did I do wrong? Am I in the right location? Did I scout enough? Am I putting in enough effort? Am I, like,
yeah,
and at the end of the day, the hunt is always going to just turn out exactly how it's supposed to.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most amazing things that I've learned on this journey is the animals are where you find them, which sounds ridiculous, but it's always true, right? So, like, yeah, hunt north facing slopes, look for benches, all this, get in their kitchen, bugle. Well, I tried that. I did that. I experienced that with zero success, or, you know, so you really more or less get to hone your skills and create your own story and be like, no, I got it done because this is how I ended up doing it. And
Yeah,
it
for sure.
and it seems like you've dialed in your story and your journey. Uh,
Well, I wouldn't have a lot of success, but really, I don't gauge the success on punching a tag. I mean, the opportunity to just be. We were muzzleloader hunting at the end of our season. We have a muzzleloader opportunity as archery hunters in the unit that we're in, and just the being. It was cold. It was probably 25 degrees, super cold, super quiet, and just sitting there was was therapy.
yeah,
So like you were alluding to, yeah, the successes are everyday opportunities to just have experience.
yes, yes. I find it very. There's no coincidences. I already said this today.
Hmm.
I was administering a test to one of my students today, and they took forever. Like, they took 7 hours to complete a 50-question test, which was more them dinking around rather than like going through it. Anyways, as the test administrator, I wasn't allowed to have a computer, cell phone, couldn't read a book, any of that. I just had to sit there with pen and paper and my own thoughts. I was like, man, this is what it was like back in the '90s before cell phones and technology, and like
Yeah.
we just had to be comfortable with ourselves. Well, I'm giving a seminar at the Western Hunt Expo here in February, and giving two talks. One is Bear Hunting 101, and the other is how to talk about hunting and why it's important. And so I asked myself in this moment of silence, why do I love hunting? And And I was like, that's a really interesting question as I'm having dialogue with myself in this room silently. It's like, why do I love hunting? I love hunting because, and it's like, oh, I get to connect with nature. I get to go live adventures. I get meat, or I have the opportunity to get meat, or, you know, all these common answers. But for me, that is it. But that wasn't really what I came up with as an answer to why I love hunting. My answer is that the experience of hunting is the epitome of life, of measurement of growth. It is the one thing in life that you can say, I know where I started and I know where I am at currently. And it takes every ounce of high quality human characteristic to grow through that. You have to be reflective. You have to be able to take feedback. You have to be courageous. And all this stuff. And I was like, hell yeah, man, that's why I love hunting. Like, I
Yeah.
can actually measure myself and have real-time feedback of, wow, I know I've gotten better today. I've gotten better this season. I've gotten better this month, year after year.
Yeah. Yeah. No, failing forward is something I embrace. And we had a really good year last year hunting, and this year was almost like a polar opposite. If you take all the scenarios that happened to us or that we were able to experience, but yeah, I love that whole philosophy there.
I guess this is what happens when you remove the distractions of life. You're just like, well, what can I come up with today?
Yeah,
What
exactly.
what's rolling through my mind and my heart and my soul and rock and roll. So you had an interesting story this year and interesting hunting season with uh, species that you weren't necessarily pursuing. Uh,
Correct.
talk a little bit about your elk hunt this year.
Well, so it began, I don't remember the day, but Chad flew in and we picked him up at the airport, and the three of us were in camp and we got camp set up. making plans, how just stuff we're talking about. Like, what are we going to do? We don't know what we're going to do, but you kind of got some of our natural where we gravitate to that we usually can at least hear or find if there's elk sign. And you start with the easier areas that are just easier to get to. We did that first morning and heard a bugle at the end of the morning, and it was kind of quiet. Middle of the month, so it should be pretty active.
Yeah.
Um, the next morning, we really want to go to an area that we've been. There's a big meadow, and on one side of the meadow they bed, and we've had really good luck in there. Um, and on the other side of the meadow, we just really have never been. And last year we tried to go in there and actually had elk come down on top of us. So we didn't actually make it in there because then we started chasing elk
Yeah.
after they kind of came from where we wanted to go. So Chad wanted to get back up in there, and we were on our way up this meadow, and we're probably, I don't know, mile and a half from where we jumped off, going up this meadow, and we go to the left and we hit this little ridge that comes, ends, it dead ends in the meadow, and this ridge starts going up towards these saddles that we're headed to. And we probably get a few hundred yards in from the edge of the meadow. And it's pretty open, but it's still like and there's fingers all, we're on a finger, we're on a little ridge, and there's a ridge to our right and there's a ridge to our left that you can barely see because it's just thicker and darker over there. I'm at the back of the group because I'm calling that day, and Chris is in front of me and Chad's leading. And the next thing I hear is Chad kind of turns his head and says, "Dog." And I heard him plain as day, and I'm thinking, this is not a coyote area. I'm okay. I'm not. This doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm looking past Chad trying to see what he's seeing, and I see movement, but really can't tell what it is. And the movement is on our level, but then going down to our right, which is a little draw that goes to another finger that we're kind of on the same level as. And there's a down tree that's kind of leaned up against another tree right in front of us, probably 40 or 50 yards. And I can see that movement, and it gets down to the bottom where it's thick, and I can still see, and I can tell it's a dog, and it's not a coyote. And I'm like, oh wow, like this is the first time I've seen a wolf that's not in captivity. And sure enough, it comes out of the bottom and goes up to basically our same level on the finger next to us. So he's probably 70 yards from us. And he, instead of turning to go away, he turns to come towards us. So he's basically on the same level, kind of not trotting, not running, kind of meandering like just a fast walk, going down, and he's side eyeing us the whole time. Like he's sizing us up, trying to figure out what we are and does he want to eat us. And it was a really surreal experience because the animal, there's just a presence that this animal had that I really can't explain. I'm hoping to try and do that for your listeners, but it was a huge animal, by the way. I mean, he was probably, I have a 65-pound dog, and he was easily twice the size of my dog. I'm
Wow.
not saying he's 120 pounds, but he was easily 100 pounds,
Yeah.
and beautiful, just almost all white wolf. Like it was like barely had any other coloring than this white, and just muscular, and the look on his face and the way that he looked at us as he goes down at our same level directly across the draw from us. And I'm now got my bow off my pack, and I've knocked an arrow, and I'm trying to get Chad to or Chris to give me a range because I have a wolf tag. And I'm drawn, and I think Chad tells me 62 yards, and so I start lip squeaking like a coyote, trying to stop a coyote or something, and
Yeah.
he just keeps looking at me. He slows for a second right before I think I drew and was holding, and then he continues down that and kind of side eyeing us the whole time. And then instead of going like directly away, he just kind of follows that same elevation line and goes around the end of the finger that he's on, and out of sight. Well, about that time, you could hear a bunch of growling and some snarling where he had come from. And so our attention quickly shifts to back up there, and through this down tree and some of the vegetation that is blocking our view, you can see some movement and some like dark colored brownish movement. And we start moving up, and I'm thinking, I think I tell Chad at the time, I think that they might have a kill up here. So we're thinking that they've just, they've killed an elk or a deer or something, and we caught them, eating or something.
Yeah.
And we move up, and as we start to get, probably within 30 or 40 yards, the movement stops and they separate, and it ends up being two more wolves. One of them was another full size adult wolf, and another one that we have on video is one that's still kind of got fluffy, like German Shepherd fluffy ears, like puppy ears.
Yeah.
And so we're guessing, I'm not a wolf expert, but we're guessing that that one would have probably been born earlier this year, and the other two were the parents. The white one was definitely a male. Um, and the other one, you never really saw her, and they went a different direction. When they left, they both kind of followed each other out, the bigger of the two. And they went more north and straight away from us instead of doing what I described that first wolf doing. And so we're still thinking, no shot. It's too thick of vegetation the way that they left. But we watched them for a while, and then we're sitting there thinking, well, that was eerie. I mean, that was only three wolves. Wolves usually have more than, one pup, and where's the rest of them? And why are they at a den right now? I mean, it's September, mid-September. And I had no idea, whether wolves come back to their dens or not. And I actually have a family friend that was a biologist in Wisconsin and worked with wolves. So I reached out to him and said, hey, any I told him the story, and he's like, yeah, I think it's just coincidence that they were there, because they really don't have a need, I don't think, for denning at that time. But it was just kind of odd. And so anyway, we move up thinking that they're on a kill there. It turns out to be a den, and this den is, I could get in and lay in this thing, and it's in the side of a north facing slope of this ridge, on this north facing side of this ridge, and protected from the prevailing winds from our, typical stuff. And man, what an experience! I mean, so the we hadn't had enough experience yet to know that the wolves had a profound impact on the elk willingness to talk and come into calls and that kind of stuff. But as soon as we saw that, it was like we all looked at each other after, kind of hanging around the den, and looked at each other and goes, I don't think there's any value in continuing to hunt right here. And so we turned right around and left and went back to camp. And I think we got back to camp by like 10 in the morning, and made a plan to go, several drainages over to at least see if how much of a footprint they are, if there's only three of them or if there's more. End up hearing wolves in the evenings after dark, a couple different times from camp. um, I remember one time the generator had run out of fuel, and I had grabbed the fuel can and went over to fill the generator. And as I'm filling it, because the generator's not running, I can hear wolves howling in the background from where we were, because that was just north of us. Um, yeah, so then the trip kind of continued to be, we didn't really have any successes. I mean, the challenge was, next other hunters. I know the term gets used a lot, but Doug Flutie and we happened to call in some other hunters, and we happened to get called in by some other hunters. And so we started getting a little bit gun shy of, every crappy sounding elk was a hunter. And in fact, one of the times I think we proved to ourselves a couple days later that we thought for sure that a bull bugling at us was another hunter, just because of its location. Like, oh no, a hunter would not, or a bull would not be there. That has to be a hunter. And sure enough, we proved ourselves a couple days later that it definitely was a bull, and we were in a great position to go get it. And we didn't, because we convinced ourselves it was another hunter, that was rough. When you realize that later. And then we had a huge storm come through. Wasn't supposed to come until later in the evening after dark. And so we went to do an evening hunt, and we're on a ridge, headed west, and you can see the clouds rolling in. And in no time, you've got these, and I don't know what they're called, but it's almost like somebody's taking a spatula and stirring the trees. They're going all different directions, and the
Yeah.
wind is just moving like shearing winds or something like that. And the next thing you know, there's a tree that falls right next to us, falls away from us, and you could, you hear it first, and then you finally can see which one's moving. And then we decided, it's like, hey, we need to get out of here because this isn't safe.
Yep.
And so we start bombing back towards camp, which we're probably 3 miles from where we uh, jumped off the e-bikes. And we're going down this ridge trail, and a tree starts popping, and you start trying to, all of us are looking to figure out which tree it is, so that you have, hopefully enough time to get out of its way as it's coming. And it's literally 20 feet right in front of us, and it goes over and falls away from us. Thank goodness. and then one more ends up falling, and then the rain comes, and the rain is just, we were drenched even with our rain gear on. It was that bad.
Yeah.
But what a great experience! And you're doing this with your best friends in the world that you get to share these experiences with. And even though this year was probably the most challenging year hunting wise, I wouldn't trade it. I mean, I know people say that and it's, cute and everything, but if you don't have these kind of experiences, then you don't learn to appreciate, the opportunity that, when I do fill a tag
Yeah.
or somebody fills a tag, and I think it makes that elk taste that much better.
Yeah.
And the little successes, we called it an elk. we saw we saw there was a for I think we saw an elk crossing the road coming from another hunting area because we started spreading out to go hunt in other areas, and the first elk we saw was crossing the road after dark in front of us, probably getting chased by wolves. And then I saw a couple elk when we were end up getting dug fluted by another group of hunters. And then I think the entire trip until the last day we saw more wolves than we did elk
Wow.
like 12 or 13 days of hunting. That's pretty, that could be demoralizing if you're in the wrong mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, what did the hair stand up on the back of your neck at all? Or like what type of experience were you having being that close to an apex predator of that nature?
I could tell you that there was a feeling. I don't know that the hair stood up on the back of my neck as much as I was like kind of in the moment, and just like I was awestruck by just they're beautiful.
Yeah.
But I was ready to fill a tag too. I know what they do to the ungulates in our environment, and Idaho's really good about managing, and we're trying to manage them. So every opportunity you need to take it, in my opinion. But at the same time, I could not help but just look at they're just majestic, and the way he carried himself, the way he was looking at us was like, I could eat you right now.
Yeah.
Like I could just kill you. And so there was definitely that. You could definitely feel that. Um, and it was like it was a and that's probably the biggest thing that we took away from that whole thing is like, that experience, and the way that that wolf looked at you was he wasn't afraid of us.
Mm.
He was not afraid of us. He was sizing us up. He was, maybe trying to pull us away from the den. If you look at it hindsight wise, but quite frankly, he was not at all concerned that we were there.
Did you end up going up to the den and taking a look inside or
Yeah, yeah, we got good pictures of the den, and you could see where they marked areas around it or something like that. I don't know if it was just, I thought it was pee, like on the edge of one of the berms or where the dirt had been moved, but it also could have just been displaced, fresh dirt from underneath. But man, the size of it was pretty cool. I don't know what a den looks like. Chad has some experience with coyote dens, and they kind of go into the ground and kind of hook a direction left or right to kind of add some protection. And this one just looked like a big hole. You know, I think I could have got in it and probably sat in there myself, but I don't know what a wolf needs for space.
yeah.
So I don't know if this was your typical den. I've never seen one in person. It was really cool,
Did you
and
mark it on
yeah,
Onyx?
I certainly did.
Are you going to go back and check it out in the springtime?
We saw there are this is going to be a long answer to your question. So there are guys that run cattle there, and the we saw the farmer or the rancher, and it's federal state ground, so they just do, I don't know, they're grazing or whatever. And we asked them if they had any trouble with wolves, and they said, yeah, we don't know. I mean, they were just starting to bring all their cows out of the high country,
Yeah.
and so I would imagine they may know at the end that they're missing some, because I can't imagine a wolf in that area with the cows there not choosing a cow calf over an elk, because the cow's going to stand there and just like be a victim.
Right. Right.
So, um, anyway, um, we told them about it, and they said that they would probably call the predator management guy from the USDA, who is a guy that we know who he is, and we've met him because he's been up in there in the past. But the weird thing is that we've never really had. There's not. This is pretty low compared to your typical wolf area, so they're obviously getting, my opinion, they're getting displaced and pushed into this area because I've been hunting this area since 2018 and only heard one wolf, and that was like in 2020.
Yeah.
But never really see any wolf sign. Unlike the area that I used to hunt up in the Panhandle, up in Unit One in the cabinets. I mean, there was wolf sign on every ridge. So, did I answer that question?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I was asking, um, shoot, man, now I'm drawing a blank.
Oh, the Dan. You asked about the Dan, and you asked about the hair standing up on my neck.
Yeah.
And yeah, we did mark it. And my plan,
Oh,
I
do
would
you plan
love
on going back
to.
there in the springtime? Like, do you want to go hunt wolves with the intention, like, hey, we're going after these?
You know me too well. Yes, my goal. I had already talked to Chris about this, and I think we're going to try and go up there in January just to kind of see what it's like. Take the Fox Pro and do some calling and see what happens, and then maybe set up a camera on this den. Now, there's no cell service in there, so it'd be nice to know when they're there and when they're not there. But I'm gonna put a camera on it anyway, just to see if it's something. I don't know if wolves come back and reuse their old dens, but it would be really cool to kind of see the life cycle of something like that. But yeah, definitely going in there in January, seeing what happens. And they're so nomadic. I mean, you're not, if I'm going in there for 2 or 3 days, you may not catch them, right? I mean, obviously it's a flip of the coin. And then, but go in there throughout the spring, and then definitely hit up there because it's something we could sneak into, where you could sit back. If you got the right angle, you could sit back and glass in there and probably catch movement. You may not be able to see the den or the area immediately around the den, but you may be able to watch the area around it and see if it's being used,
Hmm.
and then go pursue them.
Yeah.
Um, and that's definitely, I would love to that wolf would have been really awesome. I mean, it's just that would have just been a really neat opportunity, and to hunt a actual wolf and have them be the prey instead of the predator.
Yeah. You know, and it's such a hot topic is predator management, right? And delisting of wolves and delisting of grizzly bears. Obviously, Wyoming. I don't know if you saw recently. Wyoming's looking at delisting grizzly bears, and they just,
Yep.
they're reintroducing them into the state of Washington and the North Cascades, but they've probably been there. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
But the whole point is I love the idea of all these animals on the landscape. Do I love the fact that they just devour our elk and deer populations? No. And but I can still love the and appreciate the animal. The issue is that we need to be able to hunt them. We also need to be able to manage them and get after it. I love what Idaho does with the wolves. Like, yeah, you want a wolf tag, go for it. Get after it. I'm pretty sure what you can hunt wolves year round up there, correct?
Yes, you can now. I don't know. I think it changed just maybe a year or two ago, but it's year round. And you can night hunt them if you've got the right. Legally in Idaho, you can't have artificial lights, which includes IR. But if you happen to have a thermal, you can hunt them at night. You can use an electronic call, so they make it hospitable for somebody like us to go out and hunt them day or night.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Now that that is something, and you and I before we were recording, we were talking about the thermal game because down here in Texas, I always tell people like Texas whitetail hunting's cool, but going on a Texas safari is the absolute coolest thing. Go out with thermals at nighttime, whether it's coyote, foxes, coons, hogs, bobcats, like you never know what's gonna show up in the dark down here in Texas, and to be able to go out with thermals is like I highly recommend everyone having that experience, some way, somehow.
Yeah, I'm on board with you. I do it at least once a year.
Man, so you have this experience. You never got on the elk. You
Well, so we called the last night that we hunted. We called a bull in, It was my turn to hunt, and Chris was calling for me, and we actually had a good setup. We had put a bull to bed. Well, I guess not to bed, but we knew a bull was in this spot from previous experience, and so we went in a different way on him. Instead of coming from the ridge above, we went through some the bottom and some really thick, nasty stuff to get into kind of what we believed was the bedding area. Set up pretty good. Wind was good. Um, I was set up looking at a draw that goes up to a ridge above us, and the ridge above us is, a pretty good thoroughfare for elk at times, depending on where the pressure's coming from. And Chris called for we were there probably 30 minutes, and right before last light, um, I could hear crashing from above. And when an elk comes in, I mean, they're not quiet,
Right.
which is nice. And he bombs down from the top into the draw part of this area that I'm in, and he's basically coming perfectly. He's set up to come right to where I've already ranged 43 yards for a great shooting lane, and he gets down to a kind of an obstruction, like there's a down tree and some stuff, and he stops short of this obstruction and just stands there and looks like where Chris would be calling from, and stands there and stands there and stands there for probably 40 seconds. And I haven't drawn yet. I've got a great backdrop. I'm amped because this is technically our last opportunity, because our trip was done after this. He stands there for probably 40 seconds, and then he turns around and goes up the hill the same speed that he came down.
Oh,
So, and my wind was good. I just honestly couldn't figure out what changed. Because he easily could have gone around that barrier.
yeah.
It was just, brush and a down tree. But for some reason, he stopped, and then he turned around and went up the ridge, or went back up the way he came, and then went west on the ridge to my right, which is going towards Chad. So I'm like, well, maybe he's going to come down a different way, and he could come through Chad's hunting lanes or shooting lanes, and that's what I was hopeful for. But it didn't end up happening. But he was a decent bull. I could, from where I'm at, I don't really count points. It's, I'd rather fill the freezer, and I could tell he had horns, so I was excited.
Right.
But
Right.
that was really the only bull I saw the whole trip.
Man. So
Yeah.
you got into archery hunting after duck hunting. Why archery hunting?
I would blame Chad. So Chad was an archery hunter from Texas, and I told a story with him being my roommate. He convinced me that, hey, archery hunting whitetail is a lot of fun, and so I cut my teeth in Missouri, and we've been back now. I don't know, since 2013. We've probably been back 6 or 7, maybe. I don't think it's been 8 times. At least 6 or 7 times we hunt Missouri, and we have a friend of a friend that allows us to hunt his property. He's got a couple sections of ground in Missouri, Ray County, which is about an hour and a half northeast of Kansas City. So it's an easy drive. It's still 24 hours, but we can get there pretty quick. And Chad comes up from Texas, and we have great accommodations and good people there. But yeah, so that archery for me is, I don't know. I'm probably wrong, but I kind of feel like there's times where if I was rifle hunting, um, in an archery season, it would be easy, right? I mean,
Right.
I don't know how many times you've called elk in that you could have shot with a rifle.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know that I have the desire to experience the rifle side of things until I physically can't maybe do the archery thing.
Ah,
I really enjoy the physical challenge of archery and elk especially, but I also think like whitetail hunting to me is like a vacation. I love sitting in a tree and just watching squirrels and deer and not having anything know that you're there. It's just therapeutic to me.
mhm.
Um, so yeah, so the archery thing was really all Chad's fault, and I bought a bow, a used or a year-old bow in 2013, and was ready to go. Flew to Missouri. We hunted some leased land, had a blast, saw some big deer. You definitely see big deer in Missouri, no matter where you're at, I think. I hunted that. I killed a whitetail with that bow, and 3 elk with that bow. And then I finally treated myself to a new bow last year, and I bought a new Matthews, which I really love. Um,
Because you're a whitetail hunter.
but
Because whitetail
yeah.
hunters shoot Matthews.
Oh, is that true? Oh, well, there
I
you go.
I don't know. That's what I've
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
preconceived
I've got a
idea.
Hoyt as my backup bow. And so
That
I've got a
that's your
Matthews
that's your
now. So I'm
elk
covering both
bow.
spectrums.
Yeah.
What's that? Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
Hoyt's your elk Western hunting bow, and then your Matthews is
Yeah.
whitetail. No, I love
There we
it.
go. I could manage that.
That's awesome. Well, what one of the questions I wanted to ask you is you've been a follower of Soul Seekers prior with it being Soulful Hunter podcast and Washington Backcountry and the Mentorship is Conservation platform in which I have. And I was able to call upon you to mentor somebody and you were able to connect with them and all that. What was your experience of having opportunity to mentor somebody, regardless of how extensive it was? What was that like for you in the position in which you were? Because at that time, you didn't, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you were not overly seasoned of a hunter at that point, right? You were what, maybe in 8 years?
Yeah, no, that's truly correct. But it also, I think it leveraged. I'm a student of, I have probably a little bit of OCD. And so even though I may not have the physical experience, I've looked at every resource to try and gain those things. But the stuff that you asked me to do with mentoring was stuff that was in my wheelhouse for my job. It's firearms related. The kid was trying to get figured out for elk hunting with a rifle, and had questions that I felt like I probably steered him in the right direction. But yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with experience, and I did have enough experience that I probably would have been much better mentor to an archery hunter. And a lot of times I think it's just building confidence in people. I think they may be they reach out to you about mentorship, and it may be that they just it's not that they lack confidence, but they just don't have confidence in that environment yet,
Hmm.
and they just need somebody to kind of you know give them, I don't want to say reassurance because that's probably not accurate, but give them tools to put in their toolbox and think about so that they can be prepared. Because how infrequent we have opportunities to send an arrow at a beautiful animal and put some meat in the freezer. You can't afford to not be ready for something like that, and it's tough if you're new and don't know how to calm yourself, and does the hair on your neck stand up,
Yeah.
or do you start breathing funny and you can't control your heart rate, and the next thing you know you got the shakes. And so I mean those are all things that as a mentor you can. And I think uniquely as a police officer, those I you know you go through a lot of those scenarios, your physiological reactions to certain stimuli that happens during the job. And so then you learn how to, you get taught and you learn how to control some of those things, and it translates to hunting.
Hmm.
Being able to control the shakes and breathing and those type of things, and recognize that it's happening so that you're not putting yourself in a bad position to make a poor shot.
Right. Right.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I actually think I wanted to mentor more than he wanted to be mentored.
That makes sense. Did it
Yeah.
make you reflect on the knowledge in which you actually held? Like, oh, am I
Oh
actually
man.
doing this right? Or am I sharing the correct information? Is this what I would want to be
Yeah.
told?
Yeah, no, I'd say that's a great question. So let me think back. But that's another thing that I really enjoyed for my career is the times that I was a training officer and had opportunities to do training, and I really enjoyed it. I don't know if I was good at it, but I really enjoyed it. And so that, when I got certain levels in the police department, I wasn't able to do any of that one-on-one training and didn't have those opportunities to experience growth in somebody else's mind. And so this was really kind of that opportunity to extend the love of teaching others. But yeah, I if I didn't have that confidence, I definitely exuded it so they believed in me.
Hmm.
But I don't
Fake
feel
it till
like
you
I
make
was.
it.
Sometimes, I mean, but in all honesty, I think I had enough failures, and failing forward in hunting, man. I did so many things wrong that, and fortunately afterwards, and I would do this with the guys I hunt with, but there'll be times where it's like, okay, what happened? Why did we screw that up? Or was that even our fault? I mean, was it the wind? and you look at those scenarios to try and make yourself better. And that those are the teaching points that are really easy to leverage when you're talking to someone that is trying to develop, those same things, and they're just, 10 years behind you.
Right. Right.
Um, so I really think you're trying to just, give them experience from your perspective so that they have something to leverage. It's like the Elk University was phenomenal for me back in the very beginning. I mean, it gave me, I still remember, Corey saying, all right, get up, within 50 yards of him, and then let him have it with a big challenge bugle. And he's going to come in, snotting and snorting, and he's going to run you over, and you're going to be able to shoot him. And I remember the first time I did that was it failed miserably. I mean, I had a bull elk at probably, it was a nice six by six, and we were in a reprod, so you couldn't see each other, but he was probably 20 yards from me, and I wasn't even the shooter, I was the caller, and he was glunking as he came in, and I was cow calling, and he was coming to my cow calls. But Corey Jacobson, and he knows his stuff. I got to bugle at this guy and really piss him off. Well, I wasn't thinking, I should have just kept the cow calls going, and I'd have brought him right in my buddy's shooting lane. Instead, I bugle at him, and he takes his cows and leaves.
Oh,
He turned inside out. He literally turned inside out from 20 yards, and we watched him run around the backside of the bowl that we were in and take his cows into the trees. Um, and I screwed that up. So, but that right there, was something that I could now leverage confidently. I could leverage to help, mentor someone, maybe to not do that same thing.
yeah. That's one of the things that I believe new hunters need to understand. They need to hear this is just because you see it and read it doesn't mean it's true. And that actually goes with everything in life. Just because you see it on the internet doesn't mean it's real, doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
That tell my students all the time, just because you saw it on the internet doesn't mean it's factual. So, with that being said, is like nothing can trump experience. You
Yep.
got to just put yourself out there, and eventually the stars are going to align and everything's going to click, and all of a sudden you're going to be like, "Holy smokes, I can't believe I'm in this moment right now."
Yeah. No, that is 100% the way I feel. And you put all this energy, effort, you spend the entire year, 11 months of the year staying in shape or getting in shape, eating right, trying to eat right, shooting your bow, so that in 2 weeks of hunting, if I go for 2 weeks, because Chad's coming from Texas, we typically spend about 2 weeks out there because he's making one flight, and then we don't have to leave work and family for as long. But you got these, 12 to 14 days of hunting, and one of us may be lucky to get our draw your bow on an elk, and you got to be, ready. So you don't have enough opportunities to prove it, and um, you got to be ready when the time comes.
Is going back to the mentorship thing real quick, and then I got a couple questions on the elk side of it as well. Is Were you ever scared to mentor somebody? And scared is maybe too big of a word, but um,
So I know where you're going.
like
I
like
know what you're
like
saying.
lack of worthiness, I guess, is a better way of saying it.
Truly, I think, that's probably where the credibility, making sure you're giving them good information and not just opinion. Or if it is opinion, you make sure that they're aware. But yeah, I think I'm more nervous at the beginning until I know what they're hoping to glean from you,
Yeah,
or what information they need. So that the nervousness quickly goes away if the challenge is something I've actually had experience with.
yeah,
um you know um that quickly gives you confidence that, you're going to be able to help somebody. And I think just communicating, and I'm the first person to say, I don't know. Maybe we can find someone else that does.
yeah,
But fortunately, the couple that you sent my direction were not super challenging. I think they were just related to, hey, how do I cut my teeth in this kind of thing. And one of the kids I was actually gonna, bring to the range and shoot with him, just to make sure his kit was ready to go. Um, yeah, simple stuff. But yeah, I think the nerves are at the beginning when you don't know
yeah.
what you don't know yet.
So that's one of the things I want to convey, and I'm not sure if I'm doing it well enough or if I'm actually hammering it as well as I used to. But in education, we are taught through our teaching programs, and we see it firsthand each and every day, is that a student reaches a level of mastery when they can reteach their material to somebody else. Like that's when we know you understand it completely. And
That
so
makes total sense.
my challenge to all the listeners and all the people out there that I ever interact with is you want to become a better hunter. Teach other people how to hunt because that is going to get you to a level of mastery that you're not going to necessarily reach unless you have multiple years of experience or hours in the field because you have to be accountable for the words you speak to other people. And that faces a lot of pushback because people more often than not, and this is a very blanket statement, I don't like speaking so generally, is, well, I just do it because that's the way I've always done it, right? Rather than actually going through the nitty gritty of the details of the why, the how, right? We
Yeah.
need we need to understand the why. Why is the purpose. The purpose is the power, right? I know what animal I want to hunt. I know what tag I need to have. I know how to shoot my weapon. What I need is the why, the purpose, the direction in going about that, and then that is going to just make everything blossom and come to life. That's the beauty of this mentorship as conservation platform that I want people to hear and gather and be inspired. Which, by the way, I was looking up the definition of words. I'm a huge man. In the last couple of years, I've really come to understand that words are powerful. Words hold power. I've always known that, but like really understanding it. And I was looking up the definition of what motivation and inspiration is. You know the difference between the two?
I wouldn't be able to tell you, no.
Not trying to put you on the spot like that, but a lot of times people are like, "Oh man, I want to inspire people, I want to inspire." I always talk about, I'm a powerful, inspiring, loving leader. So I was like, "Man, what is really the definition of inspiration?" And one of them was it said definition was uh a divine movement. So, like a God intervening in your life to instill something in you to take action or for movement to happen. I was like, wow, that's really interesting. Motivation is, you are motivated, whether intrinsically or extrinsically, for some sort of reward, right? Like what motivates you. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is based off of the theory of human motivation. Basic, very bottom level is food, water, shelter, safety, and security, right? Before we can worry about love and belonging, before we can worry about um, self actualization and friendship and love, we have to make sure that our basic needs are met. And so I was just really diving into this whole idea of like inspiration, motivation, and how that ties into mentoring and how that ties into us wanting to be better hunters and to make sure that hunting lasts for generations to come because it's so freaking awesome. Like it's the best thing ever.
Yeah. What a great vehicle to get, that exposure.
You're getting my wheels turning right now, Trev. I'm getting,
Oh, good.
I'm getting the fire lit inside me. I had a student tell me recently, they're like, "You ever thought about being a pastor? Because you really like to preach." And I was like, "Well, no, I've never actually thought about being a pastor, but yes, I will let you have it if I need to, or if you are warranted of of getting a lecture."
Yeah, that's tough love. Are you familiar with that phrase that Frosty always used to talk about? And it was tough love and being able to, show someone that you care about them, but at the same time hold them accountable.
Yeah. So by the way, all you listeners, there's a Hall of Fame football coach from the state of Washington that coached at Pacific Lutheran University, PLU. And Trevor had the pleasure of playing under Frosty Westering. Everyone knows him as Frosty. He's the Elvis or the Madonna of coaching of football coaches. He only had to go by one name and people knew who he was. And I've spoken about him a lot on the podcast. There's an article on soulseekersnation.com that I mention his car analogy, the red car and the blue car. And it's so funny how much that ties into hunting and ties into the mentorship aspect. Everyone wants the red car. Everyone loves how the red car looks. It's so flashy. It has sex appeal. It goes really fast. Let's get to that destination. But the problem is that, you know, it's fleeting. It's there and there's no depth to it. And Trevor, if I'm leaving anything out of the red car, blue car, jump in.
You've got a good start.
Uh,
This is good.
But the blue car is not as flashy, but it's reliable and it's consistent and it enjoys the ride and there's depth to it and it will always get you to where you need to go. And that's not sexy. It's not instant gratification, but it's the best way to go. And we always talk about that in the hunting aspect is make sure to get out of the red car. Don't just do something because it's the hot new thing or the sexiness or flashy. Get in the blue car, evaluate, reflect, analyze, worry about logistics, and you're going to end up being all right down the road.
Yeah, to elaborate on that a little bit, it was always the journey and not the destination. Frosty would talk about, and the blue car. The way that the blue car worked there is that you drive in the red. This is my opinion. He didn't. I don't think he ever said these words, but the red car, you were so focused on yourself and what other people were thinking about you, and that I've got this flashy car. They're watching me, and but the blue car allowed you to focus on yourself, and it allowed you to focus on the journey that you're partaking, and towards the destination without focusing on just getting there. You're focusing on everything that happens between there and there. Um, so yeah, he was a what a wizard. That guy was amazing.
Yeah, truly, truly inspiring. The red car and the blue car. Yes, I love that. Take your eyes off yourself, put it on the team. Take your,
Yeah.
don't worry about that. Everything else will fall into place. I love it. So
There
what's
was
up?
a
Oh, go ahead. Hop
I
in.
was going to say there were a few of us that we would always joke that we were blue cars with red stripes. If you get that.
Oh, Trev, you're making me want to give you an attaboy right now.
Oh yeah, there we go.
So, anyways, Trev, what's on the horizon for you? What do you want to get out of hunting still? What besides fill in the freezer? Like that we're gonna say
Yeah.
that's given. What are the experiences, the adventures that you feel like are still out there that you want to experience?
You know, I don't ever think that I'm going to be a good hunter, and I don't know that my goal is to become, success for me is not punching a tag every year. It would be great. But I love the woods. I love I'm 53 years old next month, and I would love to continue doing this and have it be a motivation for fitness. And just fitness is going to create longevity. At my age, the more I do, the longer I'm going to live, and they say. Um, I really think that the opportunities that hunting gives me, that there's you talk about mental health and stuff, and I really get a lot out of talking with my hunting buddies. You spend half the year talking about what you want to do and what you're going to do, and that's exciting, and it gets you, builds the camaraderie and it builds relationships, and it gives you emotional highs and stuff when your day may be otherwise mundane and boring. So, being able to think about things, being able to plan, um, being able to experience. I think the experience is like the just creating the opportunities to have experiences, and whether it's seeing a squirrel, maybe the only animal you see in a 2-day hunting trip, versus having a couple different call-ins in or having, nice whitetail underneath your stand. I mean, just being able to be there and be there in the moment that those things are happening. And I would say not many other people are experiencing it. There aren't enough people that experience this,
Yeah.
what we get to see.
Yeah.
And I think we would be all better off if people did have those opportunities to see things from a different perspective than a big city and social media and their phones and um, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Here's a question for you that I have. Everyone's different. I like to hunt new locations every year if I have the opportunity to, because, or at least not every year. Maybe once I have success in a location, I like to test my skills and my knowledge and my scouting abilities and be like, okay, we know this area. We know it holds animals, and yes, we can go there and get on them. But what else is out there? Do you ever find yourself wanting to explore new terrain or set goals in that regard?
Yeah, and we talk about it frequently because a lot of times you tend to gravitate, especially when you're getting tired. People can probably relate to this, but you're in your hunting area. You know the areas that you like to go. You know the areas that maybe are physically less challenging, and you go there hoping to find elk.
Right.
Because, but yeah, it's kind of like the whitetail stand. The first sit's the best sit. I think you've heard that before, probably.
I never have. I've
Oh,
never heard that.
yeah, I don't know if I heard that from Chad or if I heard that from other podcasts or where, but the first sit's the best sit because you haven't, put your scent into the area, you haven't created pressure. I believe that that's true with elk hunting and, well, any kind of hunting. And I think if you go um this last season, we were forced to go to new areas. I mean, there's areas we have enough area in our general spot that we go that we can hunt our normal haunts, the areas that we're familiar with. So when you get in there, you can tell if there's elk in there because you know what the sign looks like from years prior, and you need to whether you need to put energy and time there or not.
Yeah.
And we have enough of those spaces in this general vicinity that we hunt that we can touch each of those in a week and know where the elk are. Well, this year, with the wolves there, it pretty much eliminated about half of our hunting area because of the amount of because we kind of tested the waters in some places, but the elk were silent in a lot of those areas directly around those wolves, and we had to go several drainages over to find. And that also, Chad, I think, experienced some. Well, I did too. We all were in brand new area because the wolves put us in that position to do it. And I don't know that we would have done it without them, but we should have.
Mm,
To your point, I mean, you really gotta, I think people like what's comfortable,
yeah.
and it goes perfectly along with hunting. I mean, I enjoy what's comfortable. I like where I can ride my e-bike and get to a hunting spot that has produced bugles in the past. Um, but if you do that, 2 or 3 days in a row, even though you're getting bugles, they're not going to come in because why haven't you? If you haven't done something in 3 days, you need to go somewhere else. Um, but I think that sums it up.
I love it. I love it. Well, brother, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for sharing your stories and your insight and your perspective. Perspectives are powerful. Everyone has opinions. Very few people will have perspectives because those come with experiences, and the experiences of what are powerful. I know it because I lived it. I know it because I saw it for myself. You are firsthand actually living your life, which is beautiful, right? William Wallace, all men all men die, not all men truly live. And we get to live each day and every moment, and it's a beautiful thing. So I really appreciate it, bro.
Yeah, man, I appreciate the ability to kind of relive some of those adventures and the emotions associated with them, and ready to do it again as soon as I can. I wish we could hunt more than just one month for elk.
D- Dude, I wish I could hunt elk. I don't know, based off of my days off of work now, and I left, 45 days of sick leave up in the state of Washington. Down here in Texas, I got 10 days, which everyone's like, well, you're a teacher, you get summers off. It's like, yes, not during hunting
But
season.
Yeah.
Like if I got my summers off in the fall, now we're talking. But
Yeah.
yeah, I got 10 days a year, and in between sick kids or, um, hunting expos and giving seminars and stuff like that. It's like, dude, I also need to make sure I get out west and hunt elk again because that is something that needs to happen. So
Yeah.
you and I are gonna have to partner up here soon and figure out a way
I
to.
love the idea. I've now that my kids are, out of the house, I'm gonna have more opportunity, and I've got some points in some spots we should probably talk about.
I love it. I love it. All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning into this episode. Thank you for supporting Soul Seekers Nation and everything that we got going on here. Remember that there's going to be season 5 of the show is going to be launching in 2025, so be on the lookout for that. Also, we're going to be launching our 300th episode at the turn of the new year. I can't believe we're already that close to 300 episodes. Blows me away. Last year, to kick off the new year, we did an episode, excuse my language, it says, "Don't be a bitch." Episode, "Don't Be a Bitch" with James Appleton. Well, James Appleton runs a Seek to Do More program, and it's all about becoming a better human and holding yourself accountable to the life that you want to live, not to the standards of other people, but what do you want to get out of life? Well, I can officially say that after going through the Seek to Do More program, that I am hooked and I highly recommend it. So James is going to be coming back on for episode 300 to talk about my experience over this last calendar year and what that looks like for me moving forward and what he's learned through his processes of coaching people. I have not missed a day of working out this entire year of 2024. I'm going to hit, let's see here, 36,500 burpees by New Year's Eve. And that is because I've done 100 burpees every day this entire year. I've read a physical, tangible book every single day this entire year. And this is not about bragging, other than the fact that there's so many times in life that we give up on ourselves. But to say, I'm worthy and I'm worth it and I'm worth investing in is something that is truly a turning point in your life. So to kick off the new year, we got that episode coming your way, as well as Soul Seekers Season 5 on Carbon TV. If you guys want to support the show, leave a comment, leave a rating, leave a review, share the episodes with people. And if you want to help out a little more, go to soulseekersnation.com and pick up some merchandise, and that will get to you soon. Be blessed. Thank you for tuning in this episode. I'm Johnny Mack for Trevor White and Soul Seekers Nation. Y'all rule. Freedom on. And as always, stay soulful. If you enjoyed today's podcast and want to support the show, you can always like, share, subscribe, and leave a rating, as it helps us share our mission of mentorship is conservation. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of Soul Seekers Nation as we transform lives through primal adventure. If you want to get more connected with the podcast, check out the Soul Seekers Nation Facebook group, as I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. So stay tuned and stay soulful.